dying patients.
Yeah, my mom was nonverbal. I mean, she could squeeze your hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You knew she was listening to you. The day before I had surgery, I would say the day before, probably a few days before I had my second surgery, my cancer came back. My sister and I took care of my mom's sister who lived in this area, not married, no children. I should say my sister always took care of her, but I would try to help her out when I could, but she was on hospice. And the day we buried her was the day after I had surgery for the second time.
Wow.
So going back with what you were saying, Shane, it's being able to see her there and work with the hospice workers. And then when she did pass and they came back, how the kind of respect that they show the deceased and the kind of love that they show the person that's there that you really don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Takes a certain type of person to
It totally does.
do that job.
So the people know at this point, where are you at now? Like, how's everything going right now? You said you're still doing chemo every
They did find, there's been a couple of times they've found new spots.
Mm-hmm.
We go in, we do the surgery, we remove the spots, and I sit on pins and needles waiting to find out.
Does that make your waiting time more, like the time that you have to be clear from cancer? Does that affect the surgeries?
Only if it is cancer. Okay. That's when it came back the second time I had to start all over.
Yeah.
So the couple of surgeries I've had, luckily the spots came back as benign.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to just keep with my regular regimen. Right now, I just had surgery, I'm trying to think, maybe 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If that. Anyway, to remove a couple of other spots that they found. Luckily, again, those were benign.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I'll start chemo again September 16th.
Okay.
And I'll go for 3 weeks. And then I'll be off for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll do it again. This is just the maintenance to keep the chemo away. And I have to do that for 2 more years.
Wow. So what are, you mentioned some other things that you are doing. What are some of the other things that you're doing to help the effects of the chemo? So you said exercise is one of those things, stress relief, meditation, all that kind of stuff. Food, what are you doing for food? What are you doing? Because everybody, and we all need ideas on how to manage our health. And for somebody who's going through this right now, maybe we could get some ideas.
Well, I think when I really started exercising, I realized the things that I needed to probably eat. Because you see a ton of people at the gym that just work their butt off, but they never lose weight.
Yeah.
Right. They stay the same.
But yet you turn around and you leave the gym, but you go to McDonald's and eat some food. It's like a friend of mine said that I don't remember if it was exact, 20% is the gym, 80% is your diet.
Yeah. It's so funny how being at the gym makes some people feel like they earn that McDonald's,
Yeah.
Right. So I just decided that it's like, I've got to help myself as far as eating. Granted, I'll still probably grab a hamburger at McDonald's or something, but it's not something that I'm going out and that's what I eat every day for lunch when I go to work. That I try to look at, the basics. There's beef, chicken, some of the meats, the proteins that I can get, the vegetables that I eat. I try to get the fresh ones, cook them, try not to cook them to death because I read that gets some of the nutrients out of them.
Yeah. Yeah. You need some of those enzymes.
To try to do that. Because I think I've got to help myself in getting better. I mean, granted, I'll still eat a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
That's most of that is for this.
Right.
To lax a little bit. So you're sticking more whole food, I assume then. More whole foods, trying to eat more whole foods, things like that, instead of all the processed types of foods, less chemicals coming into your body.
Right.
But that's a good thing for everybody to know as well. Like, even when you are even going through something, it's about your consistency, what you do on a daily basis. It's okay to have the cake every once in a while. It's okay to have the burger every once in a while. It's okay, all that kind of stuff. But that's not your daily habits. Your daily habits are what lead you to the results that you have, right?
Right.
So if you want to change your result, then your daily habits need to change, right?
Well, it's a whole different mindset. Sometimes I think some of the biggest epidemic problem that we have is the overeating everything that you go out to eat is biggie size and keep shove more in that you can get in. And it's like, you don't realize that, it's easy to eat the food. It's hard to take the weight off.
Sure. There's a lot more effort.
Then all that sugar is just like the new meth to me. It's like, the more you eat it, the more you need it. You have to just keep getting it.
Cocaine for kids.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's hard just in the society. Again, it goes back to take time to realize what's important.
Right.
It's like take time to, for me, meal prep, take a Saturday, Sunday, buy all your food. And it's nice just to cook it, throw it in the freezer. And then when you go, you take it out and you're done. The rest of the week is easy.
You guys hear that? Meal prep.
Well, even then eating more whole food, it's easy to cook. Like last night I cooked a steak. I had some raw broccoli and what did I have? Zucchini and an apple.
It's great. Sounds good.
I mean, I think by the time I was done slicing everything up, the steak was cooked and I ate in a matter of no time. It's all the other stuff that you make that it's like, seems to make life a chore.
To be honest, it takes longer to make the cake.
It does.
Than to eat the healthy stuff. So.
And you don't have the guilt when you eat the cake.
Yeah. So here's one thing. When you choose to have the cake, still don't have the guilt.
Yeah.
There's a key component. They did a study this 2004, I think, was when the study was done. But they compared people, their health reactions or their like stress reaction to when they ate something that they knew wasn't healthy for them, like a piece of cake or something like that. Everybody knows we're not supposed to eat a lot of sugar. So a piece of cake, and then they would analyze their reaction to it, like fill out a little questionnaire that says, how do you feel about what you just ate, all that kind of stuff. So they put people into 3 groups. One group was they wanted them to eat it and then just be totally open, honest, like, how do you feel? Guilty, whatever, and they had that questionnaire. The other people, they told them to eat it with pleasure and just be super happy about it. Eat it with pleasure. Then other people had to say no. They couldn't eat it at all, and then report, right? And the people that actually did the best were the ones in the middle, the ones that actually ate the cake but felt good about it, pleasure, right? They had a better response in the body, a better, not as much stress response. There wasn't as much cortisol that released, right? But the people that didn't eat it, but then they almost felt like they missed out on something. They were more stressed, right? And then the worst, of course, was to eat it and then feel guilty.
Moral of the story, cake prevents stress.
There you go.
If you eat it with pleasure. Well, but remember, you can reward yourself with that if you've done the work. Be consistent with all the healthy things. Eat the salad first, then the cake later.
Well, you don't have to have the biggest piece either.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like instead of having the big chunk you maybe normally would have had, you take half of it, and then try to walk away from it. It's me, even right now, a bag of potato chips. If my wife puts those in the cupboard,
get them out and
grab a handful and I eat them.
That's another thing. If it's there, you'll eat it. So a lot of people are like, well, I have such a hard time. I'm like, well, first off, if you don't buy it, it's not going to end up in your house. And if it's not in your house, you're not going to eat it.
Right.
So save that for the times that you do go and spend time with other people and they have something, right? But at your own house, you have a little more control over what you eat because you have control over what you're buying. Right. At least if you're the parent in the house. I guess sometimes the kids don't have control over what the parents are buying.
But it definitely is the best for you. It's going to help you if you eat healthy. Because you can't go through a cancer situation. You can't go through other health issues and not try to help yourself. I listened to your podcast, Shane. It's like, it's that determination that you told me this, but I'm going to prove you wrong.
Oh, yeah. And I almost live for those situations, like where someone says I can't do something. Like I live for that opportunity to prove them wrong. I don't know. It's maybe just a chip on my shoulder or whatever. But
he's a rebel. That's why I have a really hard time walking into Costco right now because they're like, you have to wear a mask. I'm like, I'm not gonna.
Kidding.
If it's my choice, then I can choose whether or not to wear one. But if you're telling me I have to, there's that part of me that's like, no, make me, like, bring it.
I'm exactly.
I don't like being told what
give
I
me a
have
choice.
to do.
Give me a choice. Because at my grandpa's funeral, it was a choice, and I wore it for most of the time. But then this was just last week. My grandpa passed away, and they had them there, and out of respect, I wore a mask because some of the other people that were there wanted to wear it. But then when we were bringing the casket out, I was pallbearer, and when we were bringing the casket out, the two guys that work for the
rest home,
or the people, the mortuary.
Oh, okay.
Those guys, they weren't wearing them at all. So I'm like, well, if they're not going to wear them, why do I have to wear it?
Yeah.
So I ended up being the only one that wasn't wearing one at that point. But we were outside. We carried it outside. And
exactly.
Anyways, but it's the force. I don't like force. Right. I want a choice. And I think it's just that little rebellion we have in us. So.
Well, I don't know if I would call it rebellion. My parents probably would have. My wife probably calls it that. But it's
autonomy.
It's a determination.
Sure.
It's like, I'll prove you wrong and do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. And I can't say I'm always like that. There's been times it's like, okay, I don't want any more chemo. I'm tired of the achy joints and the tired feet. It's like, I'll just deal with it.
Well, everyone has their moments of weakness, but it's the people that don't allow themselves to stay there that I really appreciate. And it sounds like you are that perfect example.
Well, you can't let it stay there. You're not going to get better. Yeah. That's me. I broke my hand. Pretty much I had surgery, came home, and I was already tired of sitting there. I told my wife, I'm like, take me for a ride. Yeah. She's like, no, you're supposed to rest. I'm like, take me for a ride or I'm going to go start the car myself. Yeah. I needed to just get out for a minute. It's part of, like the gym, it was my therapy. I can't just sit here.
Yeah. Well, again, it's finding that balance, the balance of how much to accept, right? And how much do you fight against, and just creating that balance.
Exactly.
So that's the power of a positive attitude. And that's the point you wanted to make, is it's okay to be weak,
It is.
Yeah.
I mean,
it depends on how you define weakness, right?
I think for me, again, it was those times I'm strong all day, even though I'm not feeling it. Sometimes I have to turn my head because I get teary-eyed.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this again.
Yeah.
It's like every morning before I'd go in for chemo, it's like, oh, I don't want to do this again, because I knew the results of what would happen over the next few days. And it seems like every time I had the chemo, there was a different type of side effect that would hit me.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you've got to be strong, but you also have that time when, again, you're by yourself and you just completely have a meltdown.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't feel like that's weakness. I feel like that is showing a sense of vulnerability.
Well, it's almost strength, because you're not putting other people in that situation. Like, you're not exposing other people to your weakness.
Yeah, your fears.
Yeah.
Your fears. Because I feel like then I have issues with the strength and weakness type thing and what we perceive men being, right?
Right.
And the whole like crying or breaking down type thing perceived as weakness, I don't feel like it is. Now, if you cry at the, watching I could see there might be some weakness. You know what I mean? But at the same time, when it's something that like what you're going through,
but
showing a sense of vulnerability is totally fine, and it's not weakness.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well, I think that's what I said to Shane, that it's like, I don't know, it shows strength.
Yeah,
in a way, because at that point you've been strong all along, and you can't hold that strength.
Yeah, and it's okay to just let that out.
Go. And when you do let it go, I think it gives me more power to be strong the next day.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it kind of lets you know what your breaking point is.
Right. And I think, I said earlier, people always say, I don't know how you're doing this. And it's like, you have no other option.
Yeah. Yeah. What's my
Your
option?
is to quit and die, or you fight.
Yeah.
And I think anybody in this type of situation would do exactly what I'm doing. You're going to fight.
Yeah, that's what I always don't like people to say, is if I was in your situation, I don't know what I would do. Well, I know what you would do. You would fight.
Yeah, you'd fight.
Yeah.
You'd do the same thing.
You would do the exact same thing.
And if not for you, then you're going to do it for everybody else. Like,
yeah.